Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success. Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO founder of SaaStock, and delighted today to be joined by an entrepreneur, a SaaStock founder member who's dialing in from the US. Welcome, PK, otherwise known as Preston Keller, who's the president and co-founder at Emergent3. How are you doing?
Excellent. Glad to be here, Alex.
Yeah, good to have you on the show. Is that the Eiffel Tower behind you?
Yeah, that is actually. That's my wife and I took a trip to Paris and did a little dip and kiss under the tower.
Very nice. Because I think like Vegas has a mini Eiffel Tower. Is that right, or something like that? So I was wondering if that was the
Vegas
real
version.
One. That's the real one. Good stuff. Glad we cleared that up straight at the start. And where are you dialing in from, PK?
So on the west, the Wild West, we're in Utah, northern Utah.
Very nice. I've never been to Utah, so hopefully I get an opportunity to come and check it out someday. It does look beautiful out there, so I'm sure it will happen. Maybe we get a SaaStock local event happening out there or something like that. PK, we always ask our guests at the beginning of the show, apart from their photos in the background, as to who they are. So we won't buck the trend. Would love to know who is PK.
Yeah, let's see. I've always been an entrepreneur since I was little. Whether it's washing windows, mowing lawns, had an eBay business through high school. I'd jailbreak the old iPhones and then sell them on eBay for more. Whatever it is, I've always been an entrepreneur, and that's what led me to found E3. And
I guess kind of on that, did any of those ventures, were they earning more than pocket money? Was there anything before E3 where you had a prior business, or would you say E3 is the first sort of real entrepreneurial sort of journey for you?
Yeah, I would say E3 is the one that's been the most successful, where I've had employees and stuff like that, but all my previous ventures have been just to fund my lifestyle, and I should say I had a very humble lifestyle, kind of rock climbing bum, just enough to pay the bills, to go out and enjoy nature and fill my tummy. That was it.
Still humble?
Yes, I sure am. I people tease me about how cheap I am, but it's more of how resourceful I am, or how frugal. That's how I look at it. I can definitely stretch a dollar, and I think that's so critical in especially bootstrap startup. So it's been fun.
Were you resourceful because you were recently in Dublin for SaaStock Europe? Were the pints? I don't know if you had any pints of Guinness, or how did you manage to get through the week? Was it?
Well, yeah. Dalton and I, my co-founder, we stayed down the street from the event just to save some extra money on our hotel, and yeah, we stayed away from the pubs to keep our wallets full.
It's a smart move, but it's also sad because Ireland and Dublin have got so many great pubs, and the Guinness is naturally better over there. I don't know if it's a psychological thing that they keep telling you the Guinness is better in Dublin, and you just believe it, and you can't really taste the difference. But it always feels to be the case. But obviously, thanks to you and Dalton for coming to the recent SaaStock Europe, and glad you enjoyed it. So, getting back to sort of E3, so tell us a little bit about the founding story there. Why you decided to get into the world of SaaS and start this business, and be keen to know.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just rewind like, I don't know, 6 years. 6 years ago, I had just finished up school. My wife was still going to school in another city, so we moved to that city so she could finish school. And I got a job out of college working at a software company, and I didn't really like it. And then I moved to a startup software company, and it was just like me and the founder, and we were pushing this product for emergency communications, and I stuck with them for 4 years, and 2 years into that journey, the founder of that company, a guy who I just love so dearly, his name's Cole Smith. He's one of the greatest people ever. Cole had left his military background to start this company to bridge the gap in emergency communications with software between like schools and police. And so he had this concept, and we pushed that concept together. And then there was a big defense contractor that really liked Cole Smith's skill set, and then his little company, a startup. So they acquired the startup, but really they were just trying to acquire Cole's skill set so they could use him in their bigger company for defense contracting for government agencies and stuff. Well, that big company, they've got 300 plus employees, and anyways, they just treated our SaaS startup as just a project in their huge system. And it's like all the stories, like horror stories you hear in business school, where a big company buys a little company and drives it into the ground. That's exactly what happened. The founder left, and then I tried to stick it out. Cole kind of passed the baton to me, and he's like, good luck. And then I tried to stick it out, and they just treated me as this grunt employee. I was making, I think 40 or 50,000 a year, which was fine at the time, and I was grateful for that. But like for what I was doing, it was hard. And then I could see I couldn't get anywhere with these guys. They didn't even know what SaaS stood for. I was reporting to these guys and they didn't know software. So I'm a general contractor, so I would be moonlighting and doing side jobs. And I went over to my friend's boss, and he needed some work done on his house, and he's like, why are you coming after hours, after business hours? Like, oh, well, I do the software thing in the day. And he's like, that is cool. I want to be a part of that. And I was like, well, you got to talk to this company. They're just kind of the worst, but I'll make an introduction. So I made an introduction, and Adam, was the guy that he knew SaaS, and I was working on his house. And Adam went and made an offer to these guys, and they just laughed him out of the room. And he had a really reasonable offer, and they told me that guy's a joke. And I was like, well, that was my last final chance with them to keep moving. So I quit. Adam came and asked me, he's like, dude, did you sign a non-compete or anything? I'm like, no. He's like, all right, I'll go get some money. Are you interested in starting this? A competitor, and we'll go after new verticals. But if you didn't sign a non-compete, let's get after it. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm just going to keep contracting because I'm making a lot of money on the side contracting, and I didn't, I had to just keep paying the bills essentially. And Adam, a month later, is like, hey, I got the money. Let's go to work. So yeah, I hired a development team to rebuild a similar platform, built it on a whole new tech stack, new languages, everything. And it took us about 8 months to build it. and then we took it to market. And Adam's number one guy at one of his other SaaS companies, that was Dalton. Dalton is my co-founder, and so we had to convince Dalton to leave his high-paying job at this other successful SaaS company and come basically sell our product and get it to market. And
How did you convince him?
oh yeah, we just basically gave him a fat chunk of equity, and we couldn't convince him. I was like, we couldn't convince him with the salary. So
yeah.
And so Dalton left, and that was the best decision that we ever made. I don't think Adam realized the power that Dalton and I have together, the synergies we have, because we're like a Swiss Army knife. We couldn't be more different in our interests, but we are so aligned in our entrepreneurial aspects. And so we really do make us like an awesome team. He's
the golfer, you're the rock climber, right?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So Dalton comes on board, and we're pushing the product. And to give you an idea, that previous company I was at, it took us like 4 years to get like 20 accounts and probably around like 180,000 in ARR. Maybe actually 120,000. That was 4 years of just grinding and spinning our wheels. Dalton came on, and we were on the market for like 6 months, and we had already passed that up. And I was just like, I can't believe what's going on here, because I seriously thought I was a salesman until I actually met a real salesman, and I was like, holy smokes, this is awesome. And Dalton, he'd always ask me, he's like, dude, PK, is your mind just blown right now? Because like you've been spinning your wheels for 4 years, and you just didn't know how to sell properly. And I was like, yeah, dude, like this is the greatest thing ever, because I just didn't want to give up on that concept that I had spent my last 4 years of my life doing. And now Dalton and I are actually moving it. Well, I remember the day Dalton and I were sitting there, and he like looks at me, he's like, it can't be this easy, you know? And in the most humble way, like it just, things were going so well for us. And this was like 6 months into it, and then I get a knock at my door, and the sheriff, sorry, it's still pretty fresh, but the sheriff served me a summons, a claim against me. So I was being sued personally from, we're going to call him the big bad wolf. Yeah. My previous employer, that big company, that defense contractor, they were suing me personally, Preston, Keller, and E3, my company. Yeah. And they were suing me for an NDA that I had signed, a non-disclosure, which was signed during those, I was just being pushed through HR, and I was just clicking, signing all the docs. Well, apparently I signed an NDA. Yeah. But luckily I didn't have any proprietary information to merit the NDA. But at the time, when you get, I don't know if you've ever been sued before, but it is like the worst thing ever. Yeah. And then E3, they were suing E3 for patent infringement. So that previous product that they acquired had a patent on it. And so they had worked up this big story and villainized me, and they were throwing everything they could at me, like conspiracy, tort, like all this stuff. And so there were like 6 claims against Preston Keller, and then like 8 claims against E3. Well, I saw it, like I literally just was like sick to my stomach. This was right before the holidays, and they intentionally did that. And then I had, because this was a patent infringement case, this is big money for lawyers. Patent infringement is a federal court issues. So we were working in Utah's federal district court, and I did not know what to do. There was like 27 grand in E3's bank account. We had like 10 employees, and our legal bills started raking in. And I remember just thinking, E3 is going to go under, and they're going to come after all my personal assets, and I'm going to lose my house. I've got, at the time I had two little kids.
Yeah.
I thought I was done.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, that's right.
I thought I wouldn't have a place to raise my family. And, these guys couldn't have cared less. They did.
Yeah.
And I knew these guys personally. Like, and they knew my families. I knew their families. The big bad wolf, they didn't even text or call me. They were just upset that we were competing in the same market. And anyways, through a series of miraculous events, we got a big firm to represent us. These guys require like $100,000 retainer, security deposit, and a friend of a friend recommended us. I went down to our big city in Utah, Salt Lake, and met with them, me and Dalton, and the lawyers. One of them had just come out of retirement, and he took our case because he just believed in us. He saw what was going on, and he's like, this isn't fair.
Yeah.
I'll represent you guys. Our firm, he was one of the partners. He's like, we will represent you. Do you got $5,000? That was their security or their retainer.
Yeah.
And it was just a miracle. And these guys just went to town for us. And so we were essentially writing a motion to dismiss. Like, hey, this thing has no legs. Like, throw the whole thing out. But just to get to that point took 13 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So Dalton and I, we were doing anything we could to keep the company going. I took ourselves off payroll. We were paying legal bills. Legal bills were coming in $40K every month, and we were just like, holy smokes. And luckily, it's like Dalton says to me, he's like, dude, I just need you to handle everything else with the legal issues, the business, everything, and I'm just going to focus on selling. And that's what he did. And to his credit, he was selling like a madman. He was doing 14 demos a day. He was the sales force. And then I was the setup team, and we were working late hours just making things work. And then I was drowning in work, and I grabbed my little brother to help me on setup. And then I was like, bro, please. And he was doing like loan officer or loan origination, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I hate my job. I'll come work for you, sure. I was like, yes. So my little brother came on, and then we hired Dalton's little sister to help with setup too. Like, and Dalton has his own sales force, like a team of part-time college students just hitting the phones and scheduling demos on his calendar, and we were selling enough every month to keep the business just barely going to pay our employees and pay most of our legal bills. I would say most, because that's when I had to get out, 0% interest for 14 months and throw $38,000 on a 0% interest credit card for a year, and then I just anything I could to just get capital in, and so that's what was happening at this time to keep us going. Now, fast forward June 30th of last year, we had been grinding, and we finally get to appear in front of the judge. And, we get in front of the judge, and our lawyers had prepped us, look, this patent infringement case is going to play out one of three ways. It's going to they're going to dismiss, one or two claims, and then we'll go to discovery, and everything will be deposed. There'll be depositions on both sides. Another one, like, it'll go like this, and it's going to cost this much. It's going to drag out for another 3 years, and just plan on spending this much in legal every month. And same thing with like option 3. It's going to just drag out and cost an exuberant amount of money. And so we went into that motion to dismiss, like, our trial, and I remember, like, the morning of, I was talking to Dalt, and this was during COVID, so everything was on virtual courtrooms and Zoom, and so I called our lawyers that morning, and I was like, hey, are we going to be on camera? Are they going to see us? And they're like, yeah, you can make an introduction just for a little bit, but then you'll turn your camera off, because even if you have a good poker face, we don't want people seeing your facial reactions, because they're like, PK, quite frankly, they're just going to roast you and destroy you. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And so I didn't realize we were going to actually be on camera, so I told Dalt, like, hey, let's go get in nice clothes. So we drove, my minivan to his house as fast as we could, because I was borrowing my wife's car, and we get to Dalton's house, and he can only find like 2 tops to his suits. So we threw on the white shirt, tie, and suit coat, and went back to the office, and we sat side by side and turned on the camera. The trial started, and we made our introductions and turned off the camera. And I wanted everybody to see that Dalton and I were just 2 young guys trying to make it work, 2 entrepreneurs just getting after it, and that we were sincere and genuine. I wanted them to see us. And so the judge starts out, and he hears the one side, the prosecutors, and sure enough, they just start villainizing me and saying mean things, and then we hear my side, like our side, and they go back and forth. And then typically in a motion to dismiss, the judge will hear both sides, and then he'll say, all right, thank you, I'll take my notes and everything, I'll get back to you guys in like a month, 3 months, And we're sitting there, and the judge is like, okay, thank you, and he's like, I'm ready to make my ruling. And we're like, right now? What? And he's like, yeah, I'm ready to make my ruling. And he, tells the secretary, okay, this is the official record. And he starts going off and making his ruling. And I didn't understand all the legal jargon, because we weren't in the room with our lawyers, but after he goes through everything, is, for this claim and referencing these other, precedent cases and referencing these numbers, like, I'm like, this sounds good. It sounds like it's in our favor. But when he was done, he's like, so in summary, all claims against Mr. Keller have been dropped, and all claims against E3 have been dismissed, because the patent that they were suing us for was for an emergency process. Mm-hmm. And the judge was like, you can't patent an emergency process. We've been doing this with like 911 since forever. You can't just put a computer behind it and say you own that mm-hmm. process.
Yeah.
And the judge, he made his ruling, and it was like Christmas. It was one of the best days ever. June 30th. It's like a holiday in my life. Yeah. and Dalton and I as soon as we finished, Dalton and I are crying, we're just ball babies, we actually have our lives back. And it's weird when you're pushed to the point where everything you have you can lose. Mm-hmm. You are so grateful for just being where you're at today. You don't even want more. Mm-hmm. You would even take less, but when you think you can lose it all, it's a vulnerable feeling. And at that moment, Dalton and I are religious. We're Christians, and at that moment, like, whatever your belief system is, we recognized that there was somebody looking out for us, a higher power. So as soon as we finished that, and the first thing was like, hey, let's say a prayer. Thank God for this miracle that just happened. And we did. And in the office, we were in a co-working space, and all of the doors and windows are glass. And then you just see Dalton and I crying and screaming and happy, and it was just crazy. And then we went and told the team. But yeah, so then we get on the phone with our lawyers, and lawyers are like, we've never seen this. Like, you guys just hit a grand slam. You literally just, every claim was dismissed. Congratulations, guys. Continue business as usual, and best of luck to you. And since then, we've just been like, we've had to be really careful on how we basically just, I forgot like a huge important detail. Our development team was wrapped up in the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So when the lawsuit was first served, that dev team, they built that previous product at my last company. They're the only dev shop in my town. So I hired them to build it again. And they said they didn't sign anything with them. Well, apparently that dev team did sign a non-compete, and they didn't tell me about it. Whether they knew about it or not, I didn't know. And so that dev team, we immediately stopped doing development on our product. So we were selling an MVP to our customers, and we had no dev support because we couldn't even afford dev. And we had bugs in our system, and we sold the crap out of that MVP for a year and a half. And there was over 30,000 users, active users on our platform. And we had to do the best we could to just say, like, we knew the bugs, and we just killed them with kindness and responsiveness. Like, I would tell the setup and support team, guys, we have to be responsive, and we just have to be the best customer support we can be because our product is lacking.
Yeah.
But there's nothing we can do about it. It's it. That's all we have. And it forced us to sell what we only had, and it forced us to support more than we had to overcompensate for support.
Yeah.
And then we were able to, as soon as the lawsuit got dismissed, we were able to hire a new dev shop. And then that dev shop's like, dude, this like code that your previous dev shop wrote, and it's like an open source library. Well, it's written in like their own language, and nobody really can decipher their open source stuff. So we're not even going to touch this. This is a landmine. But we will rewrite your entire platform. And I was like, you're kidding me. He's like, yeah, we can do it. It'll take, we'll do it in 4 months. I was like, we have no choice. So we paid him. We were spending we basically traded our legal for our dev, and we were spending $40,000 a month rewriting which would be like our version 1, but we called it version 2 of E3, and we rewrote it, and then we had to do a data migration from all the existing users onto the new platform, and we released version 2, and all things considered, it was a thing of beauty. It all worked out in the end. We got all customers onto V2.
Yeah.
Version 2 is live today, and it's been awesome. We've been scaling, and it's performant and stable, and our customers are happy. And through this roller coaster, this is another huge blessing. We've had like 5 or 6 customers cancel because they just believed in us, and they knew that we would really do the best we could to give them the best product. So yeah, like, we've been really fortunate, and we've just had awesome team, awesome customers through this journey.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a story. And obviously, sorry you had to go through that. And I think hopefully, obviously appreciate so much that you're sharing this, on the podcast, and, hopefully, because that can be helpful for others even if they're in different circumstances. I think there's a lot there that, I mean, personally, like, I've never been sued, but I know it happens all the time, and you're a case in point, right? And the impact that it can make, as you say, like from the the big companies not really kind of caring, about the impact on people, on humans in that respect. And as you said, just that fear that you could lose everything, right? So yeah, look, I'm so happy. Obviously, you got through that, and must have been one that in respect of having not been sued, can't relate to. What I can relate to, and what probably many of the listeners can relate to, is that I think your story is, it's one of like certainly resilience, right? And probably what isn't shared like enough is that starting a company, like these things happen, right? And founders go through so much and have to take on additional debt or not pay themselves for certain reasons, and fear of going out of business, and all these things which also really emotionally take its toll, right? What we hear about is, oh, here's how a founder got to 10 million in revenue, one straight line, and so on and so forth. You hear it, or this company raised, 50 million, congrats to them. But in reality, and I'm sure it's not 100% the case, like it's just never easy, right? It's bloody tough. Like you go through so much being an entrepreneur. You've been through a lot, right? And you've also got to have that certain something within you, and again, maybe it is resilience, or like, but your back was against the wall, right? So you also had no other choice, right? You can collapse and I don't know, just like not do anything, right? But you couldn't really. So
that was like one of the critical things I learned when you've hit rock bottom and you're like going through hell. You cannot control all of the environmental factors around you, but you can control how you react to it. And I read this book, The Gap in the Gain. It's a phenomenal book.
Yeah.
And it basically says, like, focus on the good things right now.
Yeah.
And that book got me through the darkest times. We also, my wife was also pregnant with our third child, and that third child had some serious like health defects. And she spent months in the NICU, and this was during the lawsuit, during the rewrite. It was like there was so much going on in my life, and I was like, I'm still so lucky to even have, like, it forced you to just focus on, like, hey, you can't control this environment and things that happen to you, but you can control how you react. And I focused on just like, I just wanted to make someone else smile that day. Everybody, I'll wear, like, I make everyone wear Hawaii shirts on Friday, and I'll wear funny shirts throughout the week. And it's because I need to try to help someone else that day. I need to serve others and just try to get, some sort of joy spread. And that's what helped me personally get through the darkest times. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm so pleased you had, and I guess kind of the good news, and we don't necessarily like need to kind of share, any of the details, on that, is having got through this and having got, done the rewrite and got the new product, and you've got 30,000 plus customers, you've got a bootstrap business that's doing well, and being at bootstrap, you and Dalton, own the majority of that business. So hopefully you've gone through the hardest. I'm sure it will be, right? But
I sure hope so.
yeah. But it's not to say it's going to be, and it could be up and to the right from here on in, right? But there will always be challenges, but hopefully none, as maybe traumatic as that kind of fight for survival that you had, right? And so you've got the business into a really good place now, which will set you up for success. And that experience, I'm sure, has probably made you so much more resilient, like a better person, a better founder. I mean, through these times where we learn about ourselves, right? And what we have, how do we get through it? Do we have what it takes to get through it? you clearly have, right? Like, say, not. I mean, obviously, being a founder is not for everybody, right? And some people would, perhaps sort of fold at that point, do something else or whatever. I don't know if the option like not to fight them, to give in, but you didn't give in, and you're here now, and you've got a great business. So hats off to you. Hats off to you. I mean, you're wearing a hat, and you did take your sombrero off before. But yeah.
So
but
the we had at that point we had 30,000 users. We didn't have 30,000 customers. I wish we had 30,000
I was thinking, like, Dalton, if he's doing 14 demos a day, he must be incredible. I don't know how the company's not that old, but all right, 30,000 users, but still like pretty good going. Maybe, I mean, just because like regarding Dalton. So a couple of things there. I mean, one, and we'll talk about it in a second, that you were the CEO, but now he's the CEO, and you move into the president role. So maybe I've got a question around that. But getting back to him just being this excellent salesperson, I'm sure there was probably some people thinking, about that when you were talking about that, like maybe apart from his skill sets, or you can share those, like what was it that he was doing that he's able to get 14 demos a day? Because I think a lot of people are just unable to do that and may not be able to replicate it. But like, can you share anything you know that you can around that? I know he's not here. Sometimes he appears in the videos, but I'm assuming he's not here.
No, he's not. Yeah. So Dalton is a unique breed, and I love him to death. He is. He has a way to build a vision, like I said. When he came onto E3, I was pumped about, the amount of deals we were closing. And he's like, dude, PK, you got to think bigger. We're going to get to here. And I was like, dude, I'm happy right here. I'm just pumped that this is working. And he's like, no, we're going to get here. And sure enough, we got there. And then he's like increasing my vision. And then he's increasing the team's vision. And we've got like his like team of BDRs, SDRs, these kids that are like young in their 20s and they're part-time college students. He is creating a vision for them, and he truly just genuinely wants them to succeed, and he wants them to get the most out of their experience, whether it's with E3 or not. And it was clear to me, like, and when we were talking to other people, we were trying to raise money during the lawsuit, but nobody wanted to give us money because we were in a lawsuit. But sure enough, Dalton was still just doing his magic, and he's just so genuine, and it's contagious. People can just latch on to what he's saying, and it's good. He can use his powers for good or bad, and he does it for good most of the time.
Yeah. No. I mean that's great. Helpful. It's got me thinking, because I know there's some examples that I don't know a lot where companies that are now at like 100 million ARR, they would get interns in, get really young, junior people in the business, but get them into the sales team, but with the right, whether it's the right vision, that right support, and obviously the right structure, just see them crush it, right? And I think also there are a lot of people that have tried that and it doesn't work, right? So
and to answer your question before, Dalton was doing that so well. There was a lot of long nights where I'd be writing my journal and I was thinking, do I pass the CEO hat to Dalton? Because I had grinded with a previous company for 4 years, and I never had any title at that company. I was a little grunt worker, and then I finally got my own company, and then I was the CEO and the founder, and I was so excited to be at the forefront. But I had to I had, and you can see my journal pages, I had like the pros and the cons, and it's like I just had to trust my gut and swallow my pride and say, maybe I'm not the best fit to lead E3 right now. Maybe I got us to that point, and now it's Dalton's turn, and it's his
Mhm.
time to take the helm. And he has done a phenomenal job, and he keeps reassuring that was the right decision for me. And we are very much involved, both of us. So we
Yeah.
control all aspects of the business together. We're pretty good at that.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been a slightly unconventional SaaS Revolution show. And I think certain, questions that I often ask, I feel just not appropriate after hearing this story. And I'm really, I'm truly grateful for you sharing that, because I didn't know, obviously, a lot of this detail, right? But hopefully, and I'm sure it will be, that this is something that's going to be valuable for our community, all of our listeners. It takes a lot, obviously, to kind of share that. And I know, as you said, you're still pretty raw, from that. But yeah, look, you as I say, you got out of it. There was a miracle, right? So do you have me believing? I'm not. I used to be religious, but I'm not. And I was kind of thinking, I was saying a prayer for you actually, like during that, because I didn't know when you said the judge's
Oh,
deliberations
geez.
where it was going to go. But maybe you wouldn't be here if it didn't go well. So. But yeah, look, took a lot of bravery, resilience. I think, so many of the characteristics that entrepreneurs, really need to have, like you've demonstrated, and congrats. And I'm sure only the best is yet to come for Emergent3, and, any founders that are listening that are going through similar things, whether it's being sued or just really hard times. And I've spoken to a number of founders, as you can imagine, this year that are going through like very hard times, and just whether it's layoffs or, their company's not growing, they can't sell, or like different issues, so on and so forth. Hopefully this can be helpful for them to be, relate to that it is not easy, right? And what goes on behind the scenes, to keep a business, alive, right? And then, to get it growing, like it takes a lot, and it takes certain individuals. So congrats, and I'm glad that you're in the SaaS ecosystem and part of the SaaStock founder membership community. And yeah, thanks again for sharing with the podcast listeners.
Yeah, and you asked me before the show started, kind of like biggest lesson learned. And I would say, after all this, I would, like, when you think you're gonna lose it all, and you're like, hey, money's irrelevant at this point. It doesn't matter how much you have, how little you have. What it taught me was that the relationships in my life are the most important thing. My relationship with God, or whatever higher power you have, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with your family and friends. Those relationships are the most important. And that solidified like how I view and go about my life now. And also, like with Dalton, it showed our commitment together of like, we're both in this, for the long haul. And we care about those relationships so much now.
Yeah. Very true, very true. And you've got me inspired today, Dawson. So like, I don't know if I cracked enough of a smile when you were wearing the sombrero, but I just want to leave with you. And I did think it was cool, by the way. But I want you to leave knowing that, yeah, look, not only am I grateful that you shared this, but you've also got me inspired, right? And I think many others as well. So where can people, like, you're not really on social media, right? I couldn't even find you on LinkedIn. So can people even reach out to you if they wanted to chat to you and say thank you or whatever?
Yeah, you betcha. Preston at Emergent3.com. I check my email during business hours, and deliberately disconnect after, so I can be with my 1-year-old, 3-year-old, and 5-year-old, and my sweet wife. So
yeah, like unlike 99% of the population that's still on their phones and on TikTok and so on in the evening and at dinner table. But yeah, commendable. And thanks again. We will hopefully see you at SaaStock USA in Austin next year with 30,000 customers, not users. And maybe get Dalton to do like a workshop on getting 14 demos a day. and I imagine that would be very high in demand. But yeah,
Yep.
what a story! Thank you for sharing, PK. Really appreciate it. Unexpected for me, but I'm really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Yep. Anytime. Thanks, Alex.